Okay, perfect. Okay, so what I wanted to take a few minutes of is only 10 minutes we have here is give you a sense of what we're doing for VMware. It's actually, we're new to this. There are many companies that integrate with VMware. I'm going to give you a sense of what we do and where is the differentiation, right? There's a lot of table stakes you're going to see, but definitely I'm going to spend some time to highlight some of the interesting aspects of our integration. At a high level, I think we covered the fabric. I'm probably not going to spend a lot of time. Again, on the 12th, when you guys come to Pluribus Networks, it's going to be a lot deeper on some of the concepts we just glanced over today. So for VMware, what are we really doing for VMware here? So we're doing actually, I would say 4 things. One is discovery and provisioning of your ESXi host. Nothing special, nothing crazy, right? So I'm going to show you a little bit of what we do, but this is a fundamental capability which is built into the fabric. You enable this service, we call it vCenter connection service, on one of the switches in the fabric, and now it's distributed across all the other switches in the fabric. You can add a switch to the fabric, it inherits the same capability. And we're going to go through that a little bit. Then we have the entire set of objects in vSphere from a host perspective, describing a host, including virtual switches, DVSs, port groups, are now actually integrated with a database running in our own fabric, which we call the vPort database. So it's part of the metadata that describes an endpoint in our fabric. So we're fully aware, and we can also apply policies based on VMware metadata. Kind of interesting. Number 3 is the ability to color with, again, vSphere object information, our own analytics. So you don't have to look at NetFlow-like information through the prism of an IP address, a VLAN, a MAC address, or a layer 4 port, but now you can parse these flows and connection through the fabric based on vSphere objects. For example, are these flows belonging to a particular virtual switch, a particular port group? Are these flows for vSAN? Are these flows from a VM kernel interface? You have all this sort of visibility and metadata which we attach to this sort of connection analytics we export through our fabric. And last but not least, we've started the first level of integration with NSX. Is basically we become an NSX L2 gateway, which you can control from NSX, and you can extend effectively the NSX control point to bare metal workloads and services in the fabric. So at a very high level, we don't have a ton of time to go into details. Maybe actually I'm going to use this slide. Discovery and provisioning. So we discover every ESXi host, and we automatically provision clearly the ports, right? And the multi-chassis lags. This is something that is done by many other vendors. Now, when a VM, you create your port group and you associate a VM with a port group, we are actually capable of propagating the VLAN end-to-end through the fabric, not just through a front panel port on a switch. If we are at least the switches in the fabric, we can actually also associate automatically the VLAN to the VNI, to the VTEP, and then to the tunnels. So we automate the entire process. As long as Pluribus sits at the top of the rack or connected to your host, this can also be, I don't know, third-party switch, it doesn't really matter. We actually can stitch the port group created on vCenter all the way through across the fabric, going through a VXLAN tunnel where we automate also the creation of the tunnel between two VMs. Okay? So it's really an end-to-end process. So from a VMware administrator, you create your VM, you associate it to the port group. At that point, automatically, the entire network over VXLAN is actually pre-configured. If you don't have VXLAN, you have a basic L2 network, then in order to have this leaf spine configuration, you need to have all the devices in a single fabric. Then this VLAN is propagated end-to-end. If you have only, say, Pluribus at the leaf, as long as the fabric is on the leaf switches, you can perform that over any kind of network, right? So end-to-end, the VLAN provisioning of leaf and spine is actually very one of the interesting capabilities. We do this for VM and also VM kernel interfaces. So it's very nice. We have a demo if you guys have the patience to spend 10 minutes at the solution exchange. We can show you a demo where you can provision a vSAN cluster through this technology over a layer 3 BGP network running VXLAN. all automatic and without any sort of touch points into the network directly. As long as the network administrator and the virtualization administrator agree on the VLANs to use, this pool of VLANs is allocated to this particular vCenter, and from that point on, the virtualization administrator is completely independent in provisioning VLAN over even a layer 3 infrastructure, end-to-end. Okay? This is one capability. From an NSX standpoint, we do something which, to some degree, is table stakes. But I think here the interesting part is that if we think what we discussed before, this fabric can also have geographic sort of extension. This VTEP can sit anywhere in the fabric, even in a remote data center, right? Connecting to bare metal workload. So we are extending effectively the NSX control point to pretty much any rack, even beyond the sort of the reach of the NSX cloud. So bare metal services, layer 4 services, firewall services. You can put anything and anywhere in the data center, and we can stretch to it, right? As long as our fabric is touching the bare metal services and it's connected to NSX, we can actually now extend any bare metal service into the NSX cloud. The VTEP is, of course, wire speed, as you would expect off of any switch. And we have this capability of automating the creation of this tunnel through NSX now. One interesting capability of our visibility and analytics is that we can now, the traffic are encapsulated in sort of VXLAN tunnels. Typically use visibility through regular tools, but we have instrumented our switches as effectively network probe to snoop into the traffic and look into inside the payload to perform sort of NetFlow-like, to give you NetFlow-like visibility for the traffic inside the tunnel. So we have awareness of all the conversation and applications going inside an NSX tunnel. Those are then exported to our analytics tool, which I think we're going to have a preview next time around when middle of September. But I want to point out that this capability of end-to-end visibility is also applicable in an NSX environment or in a VXLAN environment. It is kind of interesting and unique. And I think maybe you didn't catch it before, but Steve mentioned that, or I also mentioned, I want to reiterate that all this data that now comes from the switch is now colored with vSphere information. So now you're vSAN aware, you are VM kernel management traffic aware, you actually see port group aware, distributed vSwitch aware. Now you have a very detailed and granular visibility of anything that flows through the VMware infrastructure.
And you'll be able to see between the NSX what you're seeing inside the tunnel, right, and what you're seeing in the clear in other parts of the network as well.
So you can build a very simple, not every network is enormous, requires massive scale. So if you're a small customer, you can actually take advantage of our services in a simple layer 2 network where we are the leaf and the spine or just the leaf. There are some of the key talking points. Again, single point of management, everything automated, particularly if you have a vCenter in terms of a creation of lags, port configurations, as well as VLAN extensions inside the fabric. And we have Anycast gateway services also in this environment. This is, again, one of the topics we're going to peel the onion on as we go. And we scale to actually 1,000 VRF. It's actually a limitation of the current Broadcom chips that we use in this kind of environment. And again, you keep the underlay very simple. We're not asking a customer to go BGP, VPN, or anything crazy. You stay with what you know, the underlay, and we're going to give you all these services, VRF, Anycast gateway, end-to-end provision, single point of visibility from a single from our fabric. This is a sort of a more scale-out design where we use our VXLAN fabric control plane, effectively the ability to auto-create these tunnels automatically, alongside with the integration with NSX. The use case you were asking before, we're basically connecting to servers, right? And then, of course, you can perform multiple functions, but this is where we fit into the network, right? This says it very clearly. So we're really trying to provide if you allow me, sort of a hybrid SDN platform, which means traditional networking underneath, but on top we have sort of SDN properties, but without actually modifying the operational sort of profile of your network or introducing new protocols. That's really what we're trying to accomplish. So again, some of the key, as a summary, I think we have 30 seconds or something, right? 30 seconds. As a summary, we virtualize the switch, we virtualize the fabric, right? The properties that you have to tenantize a switch can actually be exported and distributed across a full fabric. This is a fabric which, again, is non-invasive, very easy to insert in a brownfield environment because it talks to the regular network protocols. It's geographically distributed, right? Very important because, again, you're not relying on new protocols, anything new. The control plane is in-band, that can be transported in-band with the data plane traffic. You can actually span multiple locations. Again, because we're fully distributed in the data plane and control plane, this is a lot about reliability and resiliency and high availability. We're very actually proud of all the work we're putting to make every aspect of this fabric to be able to reconverge and fail over extremely fast, like you would expect from a top quality networking environment. Again, the interoperability is probably our largest differentiator. You can build any SDN you want, right? But if then you're going to a customer and saying you have to change this, deploy that, it becomes a barrier to entry. This doesn't have that, right? And I think one element that probably is the most striking for customers and attracts customers to this kind of fabric is actually particularly smaller customer is the ability to actually have this embedded telemetry and application level visibility through our own Insight Analytics interface. And I hope we're going to see you again on September 14, I think, to go a lot deeper dive and show you a demo as well. Thank you.